Alright guys, yesterday I epoxy primed, well, it was a sealer that I added on it because I was going to paint these. And problem is, I shot this with some poly primer last summer, which is kind of like slick sand, different brand I used. And problem with poly primer is if you leave it in the sun, it's not UV protected. It doesn't have any UV protection in it, so the sun will bake that primer down, and if it rains, and it did get rain on it a couple times, it will soak in the rain. So it pretty much damages your primer if you leave it out in the sun or in the weather. So what I had to do is I had to sand most of that down. I think I went with, I tried doing it with 320, it wasn't working, so I went down to 220, and I had to block most of it out. And so when I sealed it, I thought, oh, maybe I can get away with it, but no. When I sealed it, I could see there was a lot of rings and kind of like halos, but you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but you can kind of see what I'm talking about right here. So I wouldn't want to paint over that at all if it's showing up your little primer spots. And a lot of those were where I went through the metal because I was sanding pretty aggressively against my poly primer, and which sucks because if I would have poly primed it then and sanded it, which I did, I think one of these I blocked out the primer when I left. Well, if I would have sealed it with some epoxy, it probably would have been fine through the weather because the epoxy, you know, doesn't absorb the rain as much. But because it's poly primer, it sucks in that rain, you know, and it damaged it. So, yeah, one of those things. And so I have to redo these. But it does look pretty straight. I mean, it's straight. It's straight as can be. It's just that the primer itself was kind of gritty. You can see right here, it was kind of like, you can see like little crackling in it. Small little, not cracks, but like little pits. So yeah, I shot epoxy, and then I thought I could do one more thick coat, regular epoxy with no reducer, and I thought, oh, it'll cover up these spots, but it doesn't look like it really did. I don't think those are going to sand out. And another thing I found out was right here, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's a low spot here, and I noticed that when I was sanding, I burned through here and burned through here. So there's obviously one spot here that I missed, a low spot. And so if I would have painted this, you would have seen in my paint a little ripple here. It's very faint. It's hard to see it. I kept going over it and thinking, is it really there, or am I seeing things? But nope, it's there. It's ever so slightly dips in right here. You can actually put your hand in there and feel it from the inside. So, I mean, if you're good with a dolly hammer, you might be able to get it out, but I don't know. I think a skim coat of glaze right here and block it out again might get rid of that. And it's ever so slight, so I mean, it's just right here, this one little section. So there's that issue. So yeah, I mean, I might be able to get some 600 or 800 and rub out these little imperfections, but I don't think so, because epoxy doesn't really have a thick build. I think I'm just gonna burn through the epoxy, and it's all like pitted all through this section here. So I don't know, guys, I might have to primer it again. It's a pain in the butt to have to primer it again and block it again. I don't want to get it painted all quick and throw these on here and be unhappy with the finish or have ripples in it or any scratch marks. So I'm going to get this done the right way, and this is just a little update for you guys what I have to do. And painting is not easy. It's probably one of the hardest parts of building a Night Rider car is the paint job, and that's what makes this car look good. If you get a crappy paint job, Mako or Earl Scheib, it might look good from 10-20 feet away, but up close is going to look like crap. So I wanted mine to at least look good, you know, from 2 feet away. I want to be up 2 feet away and wow, that's a nice car. Maybe up close, you know, a foot away, you can kind of see imperfection here, there, a couple. That's okay. But at least if you're 2-3 feet away, you know, you're not seeing anything that sticks out like a sore thumb. So that's what I'm going for on my car. Again, I'm not a professional painter, but I know what I'm doing. So it's just one of those things that I can ramble on for 20 minutes and vent out how disappointing things get when you think you're done and you have to repeat it because of stupid things like putting these on your car and driving around with a half primered car. You know, that's a no-no. So if you guys are building one of these, don't primer your parts, throw them on your car and just drive around like that, because the weather is going to destroy that primer and you're going to have to paint your parts again. Unless you use epoxy, but epoxy is not UV protected either. So your epoxy will eventually fail, but the epoxy is the best bet if you're going to leave your stuff in the weather, because it does seal the water pretty tight. Like, the water doesn't really absorb into the epoxy as much as it does the poly primers and the urethane primers. So that's my rant for today. A little bit of disappointment, but back to work. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna stop and get disappointed and lay in bed and, oh man, oh, you know, no. You get out there and you get it done. You get out there and say, you know what, I screwed up here, I missed this spot, let me sand that a little bit, let me put some glazed putty over there. You don't have to sand it too much either, because this is epoxy, so epoxy it'll stick right to it. And yeah, so I'll fix this one little spot here. I'll probably grab some 600 wet, try to sand this little crater spots out, little dimples here. If they don't come out, I'll stop and say, okay, I need to reprime this whole thing. There's a low spot here, and you can see after I blocked it out. Now what I used was dolphin glaze, and then I just got a little softback 220, and then I went over it with some 320. Okay, and hopefully it's out of there. I cleaned it up, and that's pretty much the major one that I saw was right here, and I think it's good now. Run my hand over it, can't really feel it, but the rest of the panel looks pretty good. What I could probably do is go over the rest of the panel 600 or 800, 6 to 800 wet. This particular epoxy says I can do it the next day, 24 hours, that I can wet sand it. So you can't dry sand for 2 days, 2 or 3 days, but wet sanding you can go over it. I already blocked this thing 2 times. Once was the initial time, and then I poly primered it, then I blocked it out again, and then I blocked it out again. So actually 3 times. Alright, just wet sanded it, 600 wet, and I think we're good for painting. And last thing I'm doing is taking a Scotch-Brite pad, and I'm just giving it a one over, so if there's any little scratches I missed, I'll smooth them out with this. Alright, so after I scuffed this, it looks pretty good, but I'm still not happy. I found out there's still some dings, high spots over here that I missed. Now that when I got this fender, it was pretty crapped out. I fixed it, but obviously I didn't fix it good enough, because I'm seeing a bit of a wave here, a couple of them, and this is really pissing me off, because I really wanted to paint this, but now I'm seeing this high spot in my panel, and it's faint to see, but I know it's there. I can feel it with my hand. It's like a crease in the panel, like as if it got, well, I know it was damaged here, but yeah. Alright, so I'm trying to get an angle that you could see. Looks like a high spot here, high spot there, and one there. So, well, since this has been epoxied and filler sticks to epoxy, I could just put a skin coat of filler right over this and then block it out again, because I'm not going to be happy. If I paint this, I'm going to be pissed off. I'm going to be able to see that. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's very visible to the eye now that it's in black, and epoxy's pretty shiny. So if I can see it now, it's gonna even show up even worse when I paint it. I know it's on the lower part of this, but more body work, guys. It looks like I'm gonna need some here too on this panel. So it looks like I'm gonna skim coat from pretty much the light down. I'm just gonna run a bead across here, here, and even the bottom level, and then block it out, because I'm not happy with the way this is looking. Alright, just put some 3M Platinum Plus filler, skim coated it, because I didn't like the way it felt. When I was running my hand, I could feel a high spot right here, and there was a couple little dimples. Same down here. So I'm gonna go with I went over it with 180. I mean 80. Now I'm gonna go 180. Alright guys, after blocking this, just like I felt with my hand, there's the high spot. Okay, I'm starting to go into the high spot, so I'm gonna stop blocking. This is nice and smooth now. If I keep blocking, I'm just gonna go more into this high spot, and it's right now it's nice and flush. So if I didn't cover this with filler and I would have just painted it, this high spot would have shown up in the paint as a ripple when you look down at an angle. So I'm glad I fixed it. Now it should be nice and smooth. This is done with 180. Now I just have the primer over that. I found another little ripple right here. I'm pretty sure I fixed it, but it's still a small little low spot there, and that's probably from where people jack up the car and they put the jack right under the fender where they're not supposed to. And there's another little low spot, very small right here, and that's probably from over tightening this little nut for the power antenna. At an angle, this thing looked, well, with my hand I can't feel any ripples here, so I think this is okay. But yeah, so I gotta address this one and this one here. And since this is epoxy, again, I could just go right over it with my filler and be fine. It'll stick just fine. It looks like I'm gonna have to go one more time over this, because this has got some little low spots too in here. Alright, just finished blocking it all out. I had to put some glazed putty in here. Still got to put a little more here. There's a little crack in here. And then this should be nice and flat. Alright, since my body work wasn't perfect the first time, I had to fix this dent here, dent there, dent down here, in this area here. I might as well go over it with some 2K primer again and block it out one more time, just to be on the safe side, since I missed so much the first time around. And since it's epoxy, the 2K primer will stick to it perfectly. So yep, fortunately when you get old fenders, you know, they've been damaged, it takes a lot of work to get them perfect. But this one's looking real good now. So I think I'm going to primer it one more time with some 2K primer, maybe some poly primer. Alright, so I wet sanded this with 600, and I can't see any flaws in this thing, so I think this one's ready for paint. The only place I seen was that little scratch here that I filled. That's going to need just a little shot of primer there. Probably primer sealer would be good enough for this. And then paint. Yeah, but that other fender was, it had damage to it. Severe damage. So, not severe, but pretty bad. Alright guys, after thinking and thinking about this, and the more I think about it, the more I want to put some more primer on it, some poly primer like Slick Sand, because I'm just not 100% happy with these fenders. I still see faint little waves in it. If you look at it at an angle, faint. And I'm not sure if that's, it's probably going to show through in the end result. So I think I'm going to shoot it with 2 more coats of poly primer, because that stuff stacks really thick, and I'll be able to block that down one more time and get rid of those little waves. I'm seeing them in this panel right here in this section. It looks pretty good down here. This panel is pretty good, but if I'm going to do this one, might as well do this one too. Just shoot 2 more sessions of the poly primer and block it out with 320 to 400, and then I think I'll be good to shoot my sealer paint. It's all dry now. It's ready for blocking. But I'll block it out tomorrow. This is the panel that had the little ripples in it that I didn't like. Hopefully that flattens it up. Looks like it is. Can't really see the ripples no more, so I probably filled them in and then I just block it out and then it should be nice and flat.